All right, folks. Happy International Women's Day. I know to the folks in the West who are watching this video, you might be saying that it's only March 7th. While I'm currently in China, and the Chinese time zone is 13 hours ahead versus Eastern Standard Time. So it's already March 8th over here, and there's no filter applied to this video. If you're wondering where you guys are seeing in the background, is it really foggy? No, that is actually a smog. That is a direct result of pollution. I mean, a Chinese city of 13 million people currently, and this city has over 4,000 years of history. Just look at that in the background. By the way, I'm in the northern end of the city, so I'm nowhere near the downtown core. Just, I would say probably 20 years ago, this area all over here, they all looked something like this. You guys see all the grass over here? Yeah, it used to all be just a bunch of empty plains, and it's insane how fast this area has developed, and obviously this has had severe consequences. And I want to continue the topic of the rise of technology and the rise of mega cities, how this has ruined modern day dating, modern day marriage, and the nuclear family. So let's talk about women's struggle. I've been talking a lot about men. So at the start of this video, I want to bring up this study from Harvard. So Harvard University conducted this study. So by the way, this study was done on 4 different women's sports across the 44 different countries. So this is not just a small sample. We're talking 44 different countries. You have women with different religions, coming from different ethnic backgrounds, coming from different continents. And this extensive study from Harvard revealed something that might be shocking to many viewers. Basically, if you guys watch any kind of sports, you think that men are generally more aggressive, men are more violent during these sporting events, whether it's basketball or soccer or football, right? You think the men are generally the aggressors in these type of events. But what the Harvard study actually revealed was quite the opposite. It basically revealed, yes, men are generally more aggressive during the matches, but let's say afterwards, after the basketball game is over, men are more likely to make peace. Whatever has happened between the match, there could be arguments, there could be fights, maybe things got a little bit chippy, but generally after the final whistle is blown, men are generally more likely to come in and high five and congratulate each other. Men will say that that was a great match. And whatever has happened during the match, this does not hurt their camaraderie. However, for the women's side, generally speaking, women are less aggressive during the sporting events. However, after the match, women are way less likely to make peace with their opponents after the match. They're way less likely to go in for hugs. They're way less likely to come in for handshakes. They're way more likely to be aggressive towards each other, starting hair pulling, starting fights, calling each other bitches. And this is very, very important. The reason why I want to bring up this study, right, because this study has a massive sample size, is because this study tells us something. It tells us that women struggle when they have to compete with other women. What do I mean by this? Think about what has happened since the 1970s, the rise of third wave feminism, since the majority of the women in Western society, many of these women now have to enter the workplace. What happens when a woman gets hired by a company, and now she has to compete with 20 other women in order to fight to become the supervisor, to gain a chance for a promotion? Of course she's going to struggle. Basically, the vast majority of men, they have already adapted to this process, right? Men have to compete with each other in order to find a woman, in order to start a family, in order to procreate. But throughout history, all a woman has to do was to simply exist. But so much has changed in the last 40, 50, 60 years. And think about the rise of these mega cities, right? If you guys want to look at really, really tall skyscrapers, right, just go to anywhere in China. At this point, it's absolute overkill. Honestly, for me, most of them they're quite ugly to look at. I would much prefer life back on the countryside. You see what has happened with rise of all of these mega cities everywhere. So it's everything you look at, everything in the world, right? All these skylines in China, all these skyscrapers, all these tall office buildings, they were all built by men. And what has happened is that men built all these mega cities around the world. Unfortunately, everything in this world is a double-edged sword. The rise of all these mega cities and the rise of new AI, rise of technology, all of these advancements has made women almost completely independent from men. I want to bring the topic back to a couple weeks ago, where I made a video. I showed you guys the rural countryside of China, where I was temporarily staying at this house built by this Chinese man with a zero education. He's 73 years old now, and he still cannot read or write, but he was able to build that countryside home all by himself. See, there's something very important if you guys want to know. If you guys want to move to, let's say, to the southern part of China, the winter is actually brutal, because if you go to the north, every single home in China, they have built-in heating, whether it's by pipes or it's in-floor heating or there's a air conditioning unit. So in the winter, when it's extremely cold outside, it's actually not so bad. If it's too cold, you just stay indoors, right? And there's air conditioning, there's floor heating. It's never ever that cold. However, when you go to southern China, the winters are absolutely brutal, usually December, January, February, because almost none of the homes in China, in southern China, for some reason, none of them are built in with any kind of AC or in-floor heating or any kind of pipes to keep the home warm. So for example, let's say if you go to the Sichuan province, right, if it's the middle of January or December, at nighttime, the temperature could fall to 0 degrees Celsius. And for all of you Americans out there, so that is 32 Fahrenheit. That is actually extremely cold, because if it's 0 degrees Celsius or 32 Fahrenheit outside, when you're staying inside of your home in southern China, it is also 0 degrees Celsius. So as you guys can see, right, this is a massive problem. When I was staying at that rural countryside home for about a week, I was freezing to death almost every single day. I had to put on a winter coat. I had to put on all these extra layers. I had to sleep with these extremely thick blankets. See, way back in the day, you know, when women without the technology, when they had to live in these countryside houses, they had to find a way to keep warm. And oftentimes they had to rely on men in order to go to the woods, in order to cut down trees, in order to chop down some wood to keep themselves warm. Now, when these women go into the city, when they have all these infrastructure, they no longer need men to do all of these jobs. Now they can say that, oh, I can simply spend, you know, $1,000 or $2,000 on an air conditioning unit, and I can keep myself warm throughout the winter. Now I don't need men. That's why, you know, you see all these modern women, these feminists who are saying that, you know, oh, we're finally independent from men. Everything in this world has severe consequences. There's going to be positives and there's also going to be negatives. You can also think about it like this, right? All these women who are saying that, oh, now we want all these good paying jobs. We want to crush the patriarchy. Have you guys noticed something interesting? Since I'm talking about air conditioning, right? Women only want jobs with air conditioning, right? They only want the executive suite where they have their own office, where they have their own desk, where all they have to do is to do some typing on the keyboard, where they have their own chair where they can spin around all day. And if it's too hot during the summer, they can turn on the AC to keep themselves cool. If it's too cold during the winter, they can simply, you know, just turn on the heat to keep themselves warm. A woman out there actually wants to apply to be a factory worker, to make some plastic. They don't want to be a bricklayer, right? They don't want to be a plumber. They don't want to be an electrician. You see all of this, right? Everything, you know, in the background has been built by men, has also 100% backfired on men, because it has made the woman 10 times less dependent on men. I also talked about this, right? About, you know, how the 73-year-old Chinese guy, how he's able to stay healthy for so long. Because when you live in the countryside, you have no choice. The village I was staying at, there was 2 convenience stores and there was 1 restaurant. That's it. What happens when you want to eat? You have to go to the field, right? You have to plant the seeds. You have to grow your own vegetables. If you want to eat some meat, right? You have to raise your own herd. You got to raise your own chicks. You got to raise your own ducks, your geese, your sheep, and your pig. And if you want to eat meat, you actually have to do the actual slaughtering yourself, right? You have to drain out the blood. You have to pluck out all the feathers. You have to do all the manual labor yourself. And this is why way back in the day, so many countries worldwide, right, the vast majority of civilization, they preferred to have a baby boy over a baby girl. It's very simple, because way back in the day, without technology, everything in the countryside, when you live in these farm homes, when you lived in these brick houses, everything was extremely labor intensive, right? When it's cold outside during the winter, you gotta go chop some wood, and it takes a lot of strength, right? And if you want to raise your own herd, if you want to raise your own pigs, if you want to raise your own sheep, if you want to raise your own chicken, this is all extremely labor intensive. And you know, if you want to eat your own healthy organic green vegetables, you gotta grow your own garden. Everything required physical strength. You know, and I'm sorry to say, I'm not trying to be misogynistic, and obviously the average man can get more work done on the field versus the average woman. So this is why throughout history, right, the vast majority of the human civilization civilization preferred to have a baby boy. There's so much more I want to add on to this, but I want to make this a series where I can discuss each topic separately. I don't want to make any individual video too long. I will come back to this topic for the summer, where I will make a full-length documentary on the rise of technologies and mega cities, how it has basically made the human civilization progress backwards. And I want to tell you guys why a lot of these modern women, right, they keep saying that we're unhappy. Women are so unhappy all the time. They're unhappy when they're single, they're unhappy when they're in a relationship, they're unhappy when they're married, they're unhappy when they're married with children. Why are women always unhappy? Well, here's the thing. Generally speaking, women struggle when they have a lot of choices, right? Right now, I'm staying in a city with 13 million people. Later, I will show you guys a Chinese city with 22 million, and then eventually the most populous Chinese city with 32 million people. It's absolute insanity, right? So here's the thing. For the vast majority of men, I'm not saying for all men, I would say probably 80 to 90%. Let's say if you're a 5'3" Indian guy. I'm sorry to all the Indian guys out there. Let's say, yeah, if you're a 5'3" Indian guy, if you're working at 7-Eleven making minimum wage, right? Let's say you're balding, you're losing half of your hair, and let's say if you have extreme body odor, right? Let's say if a 275-pound snow bunny, if she said that, you know what? I know I'm not the most attractive, I know I'm not the most beautiful woman in this world, but you know what? I think you have great personality. I don't care if you're 5'3", I don't care if you're making minimum wage. I'm willing to marry you, and I'm willing to start a family with you, and I want to have 3 kids with you. The vast majority of the time, that guy that's 5'3", that's balding, that has extreme body odor, if he was approached by a woman that's 275 pounds, he's going to say that, you know what? On the dating market, I'm probably a 1 or a 2 at best. God has sent me a woman that's 275 pounds. You know what? I'll take it. I'll make her my wife. I'll treat her like a queen, and I'll start a family with her. See, this is where women are completely different from men. So what happens when women go from the rural countryside to the big city when there's 13 million or 20 million or 30 million people? Well, everywhere she go, right, it doesn't matter if she's married or single or in a relationship, right, she's going to see tall, good-looking, successful, rich man everywhere she goes. So that's why she's always unhappy. Way back then, when women lived on the countryside, when everybody had their own brick homes, right? Let's say if she's married to this guy, let's say her husband is mid, he's this average guy, he's nothing special. But everywhere she goes in the village, all she sees is a bunch of short, broken, ugly men. Of course, she's going to think that, oh, I made the best decision of my life to marry my husband. I'm in a happy, healthy marriage, and I'm raising a family. And honestly, I am so happy. I'm so grateful for my husband, because out of all the men in my village, I honestly made the best decision. But when a woman goes into these mega cities, when she sees these 6'5" Chads and Tyrones, when she sees men who are full of muscles, when she sees these successful doctors, CEOs, millionaires, lawyers, engineers, she's always going to be unhappy, because when she's walking around with her boyfriend, let's say she's just an average woman, 5 out of 10, and her boyfriend is actually better than her. Her boyfriend, let's say on attractiveness scale, he's actually a 6 or 7. She's always going to think that she's made the wrong decision, because she sees 9s and 10s every single day when she's walking down the street. Just think about it like this, right? When women go out to shopping, right? Let's say if you walked into a store that sells these handbags. If she walked into this massive shopping center, right, there's 10,000 handbags for her to choose from, and she can choose any one of them, right? Do you guys really think that that woman is actually going to walk out of that shopping center thinking that, oh, I made the best decision possible, I chose the best handbag? Well, no, absolutely not, because it doesn't matter which one she chooses. You can give her 100 different attempts, right? Every time after she's bought a handbag, she's going to walk out of that shopping mall, she's going to think that there are 9,999 handbags still out there. Probably at least 2,000 of those handbags, they're better than the one that I chose, right? See, this is a woman really struggle, with the rise of these mega cities, because there's too many choices. But what happens, let's say if she goes to a smaller mom and pop shop, right? Let's say if she walked in and she's trying to choose a handbag. What if, let's say there was only 5 handbags for her to choose from, and she can only choose one? What do you guys think happens when she walks out of that mom and pop shop? She's probably going to think that, yeah, I have definitely made the right decision. This is the best handbag I could have chosen out of those 5, because she probably had time to thoroughly examine each one. And when she walks out of that small mom and pop shop, she's probably going to be happy. Now let's imagine, right? Let's imagine she's really poor. She lives in the countryside, and the infrastructure is quite poor around the countryside, around the village. She has a hard time making it to the city. Let's say for Christmas or New Year's, right? One of her family relatives, they brought back a handbag from the city. Do you think that she's going to be unhappy? Do you think that woman is going to be ungrateful when one of her family relatives brings back a handbag from the city? Absolutely not. She's going to cherish that one handbag for the rest of her life, because she's going to think that I can never ever afford something like this on my own, right? I'm eternally grateful because this is the only handbag I have ever seen in my life. I have never ever seen anything else that's quite like this one. This is 100% unique to me, so I'm going to cherish this for the rest of my life. See, so much has changed, right? And by the way, I'm not just trying to focus on women. It's also a man's issue as well. But imagine, let's say if I was a 6'5", 250 pounds professional athlete, if I was playing the CBA, the Chinese Basketball Association, if I was making $2 million a year in China, and obviously when I'm walking around a big city with 20-30 million people, I'm going to struggle as well, because it doesn't matter which girlfriend I pick, right? I'm going to think, why should I stick to one woman? I have all the money in the world. I can pick a brand new 18-year-old rice bunny every single day. I can go through 365 women a year, because why should I have to commit with one woman? I have all the choices in the world. So yeah, this is the state of the world in 2025. Everything has changed, and unfortunately none of us can ever go back, and it's so important to discuss this topic. I think a lot of people don't realize how much negative technology has brought into everybody's lives. So I will continue to come back to this topic. Thank you guys so much for staying all the way until the end. I will see you guys next video.